Music is all around us. It is the universal language. It evokes many feelings and is something to be shared and celebrated. You have found a place where all kinds of music will be celebrated. So welcome. You are tuned in to the Zen Sessions, presented by Here to Zen magazine.
Welcome to episode 30 of the Zen Sessions. Curt and I are here to talk all things Crashdiet. The new album, Automaton, will be out April 29. How you doing, Curt?
Doing great. Happy to be here on the 30th episode.
30th episode. Go team.
Yeah. It's like I feel like it's an honor being bestowed upon me.
Crown.
Yeah. I'm sure I've got one in here.
No, I know you have. All right, so yeah, Crashdiet, new album. I believe this is is it the first with their new singer?
Fifth album? No, it's the second album with their new singer. Their last one was 2018, I believe, and it's called Rust, which is also an incredibly good album.
And so is this one. As someone that's not familiar with the band, but does love his 80s style hard rock, it's very hard to not label this like that, but the big thing I get out of it is fun.
It's incredibly fun. Very high energy.
And you mentioned something to me the other day, and it made me go back and listen a couple of times again today. The production is nuts.
It is possibly one of the best mixed albums I've heard in the last maybe 12 months.
Yeah.
It is just dense but crisp. Everything is flawlessly done.
Yeah, it's a very thick sounding album. It's kind of, while it's not a Def Leppard sounding album, it does have the layers that you expect from that style of 80s Def Leppard-esque albums that many bands tried to copy back then.
Yeah.
But without making it sound like fake and forced. You can actually still hear all the tracks.
It's got a lot of punk rock influence, I think, with a lot of it, that very high energy grittiness, which is great. Like it's
And for me, the sucker for the power ballad,
you always gotta have a power ballad in it.
And so many bands attempt the power ballad. They do not succeed.
Yep.
These guys succeeded. There are two super special guests on the album that we'll get into a little bit later. One is
there's a lot of surprises.
Yeah,
there's a lot of surprises if you're a fan of Crashdiet, like I am, and a lot of surprises if you're a fan of this sort of 80s hard rock, hair metal sort of thing.
So you've sort of been into them for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I got into them through a Finnish band called Reckless Love back in, I think about 2009 was the first I'd heard of Crashdiet, and I didn't really listen to them much, and then got really into them in like 2010, and just they'd had 3 albums out of that point. They just dropped their third, Generation Wild, and I lost my shit. And they've been a mainstay on my music players since then, which has been awesome.
And side note, kids, Reckless Love will be out here at the end of the year with the almighty Skid Row.
They will, and that will be very, very fun to see. It'll actually be an opportunity to see the second lead singer of Crashdiet. Ollie Herman from Reckless Love was their vocalist for their second album, Unattractive Revolution, I think it was. And he was under the stage name of H. Oliver Twisted, which is the dumbest stage name I've ever heard.
We don't mind sharing the dumbness.
It's fantastic vocalist. He didn't quite work for Reckless Love, for Crazy Licks. He's a little bit, didn't have the edge, the attitude, which is interesting because he's a very, very good frontman. But he also sounds like Crashdiet. They've had 4 lead singers, and everybody that sung for that band, it sounded very, very similar, which is really, really nice to hear that sort of cohesiveness.
So, while it's his second album, do we know a bit about Gabriel's sort of history before the band, or was he like an unknown guy?
He was in a couple of small bands, I think. I haven't looked into its history before the band, to be completely honest, because he joined after a very tumultuous time in the Crashdiet history, and just sort of joined and was an incredible vocalist and sounded perfect for the band. And there's been like, don't need to know what you've done before this. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
And
his vocals on this album are just unparalleled. They're
really good.
cool.
Yeah. But even as simple as like, I love a drummer that knows how to play. And Eric, the drummer, doesn't overplay. He plays for the song. I think it's because he is one of the primary songwriters in the band as well. So he's actually really developing how the drums sound within the song on their own. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. But
Absolutely.
weren't you saying something to me that in all these little intertwined Swedish-Finnish bands, there's a guy that started his career in one of them that's gone on to quite big things?
Oh yeah. Back before the first album for Crashdiet came out, Crashdiet existed from 2000 to about 2005, in just as doing the local circuits and stuff like that. And for 2 years, up until mid 2000 or end of 2002, they had a guitar player by the name of Mary Gore, whose stage name is based off Gary Moore, because hell yeah. Who ended up going and forming a little death metal band called Repugnant, and then a sort of a alternative rock band called Subvision, and then formed a now currently giant band as the lead singer of Ghost. And it was Tobias Forge from Ghost was in Crashdiet, which is just the weirdest fucking thing to think. What I wouldn't give to see video of them performing and have Tobias Forge there on guitar with his long hair out. So
I was gonna say, is there even like a lot of photos from that time frame around?
I've never honestly gone looking. There's stuff from Subvision and Repugnant for sure. A lot of his death metal stuff's fairly, because Repugnant were quite well regarded, at least from what I've heard. As for Crashdiet, not really sure. There's not, at least when I was back looking at photos of Crashdiet, they weren't easy to find.
Right.
So, which is odd for a band that is as visually driven as Crashdiet is, doing the hair up and everything like that. So
yeah, and
I guess it's just Sweden, hey.
Maybe, and like I think they actually filmed a new clip as of today for an upcoming single.
Yeah. So it's very exciting times if you're a fan of Crashdiet. Apparently it's always exciting times if you're a fan of Crashdiet.
Exactly, and we were pretty lucky. So last week we got Martin and we got Peter on Zoom, which was really cool. And they go through a few things. They talk about a lot of the stuff to do with the album. We have a bit of a chat, some pretty decent laughs.
Excellent.
We talk culinary. We get some culinary delights at the end of it from them. But so what we're going to do, we're going to swing through to the interview now, let you all watch it, then we're going to come back with our thoughts and talk more about the album. So we'll be back in however long that interview takes. So back in a sec. Hey guys, how's it going?
No, it's good. All good. How are you?
Fantastic. Can't be better.
Good to hear.
Wow.
Look, it's 8:30 on a Monday night in Brisbane. What's there to complain about?
Yeah, you're right.
You ready to go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Congrats on the new album. I got a copy sent through 2 days ago, so been happily listening to it as a fan of old school 80s classic rock.
All right.
Very happy to hear something as cool as this with the riffs and a bit of that old school 80s production. So it's your sixth album, yet it's your fourth singer, but yet it still sounds like Crashdiet. So after all of this, how do you manage to keep it sounding like Crashdiet?
Good question.
I have no idea.
I guess we have a good recipe by now, We sound like a little bit of everything from the 80s, but with a modern sound in modern production, I guess. And that's kind of always been our goal with the new album, with every time we do a new album, like just not too, it can't be too retro, you know, like many other bands are.
I do like the fact that you don't chase trends. You just,
Yeah, exactly.
you're you. And it shows on the new album. So when it comes to songwriting for the album, are you guys writing separately and then coming together, or you just go in and write from scratch together?
We write separately in different constellations, you know. Sometimes it's me and the singer, and sometimes it's the drummer and the singer. What's new with this album is that we had a producer that was very much involved in the songwriting too, so at an early stage. So we kind of, like, before we even entered the studio, we had all the songs like 90% done.
Okay.
And then we just re-recorded everything.
Right. Okay, so here's a question. Thinking about when it's writing, and you've been together for some time now, does it get any harder to tell your bandmates something sucks?
It actually gets harder and harder every year that passes, you know. We don't like conflict in this band.
Yeah, that's true.
Has there been any moment when you're writing a song and you go, I'm just not feeling that part, but you haven't said anything?
Yeah. And then everybody loves it. Or
Perfect. Now you have Gabrielle, your new vocalist, absolutely great fit for the band. It's one thing when you get a new singer or any kind of new member, the talent has to be obvious. But what was the other important factors bringing him into the band? What qualities did he need for you guys?
We just need to get along with the dude, you know. That's even more important than actually being able to sing, you know. There has to be a certain chemistry within the band, or it's not going to be fun to work with someone, you know, even though he's the best singer in the world. So we kind of hung out with him and tried him out for quite some time before we announced his new role in the band. So we wouldn't dare to do like Skid Row did with Erik Grönvall, just switch. Or maybe they knew each other for a long time, but it's just it just needs to work, you know, in the long run.
Do you think the fans sometimes don't understand that when you're in a band, you're only on stage for like 90 minutes or 2 hours, and that you actually have to get on with each other for the other 22 hours of the day, and that's sometimes more important?
Yes.
That's so important. I can't stress that enough, you know, how important that is.
Nothing worse than being trapped in a band with someone you don't like. Now, to the album. So I'm going to start at the very beginning. You've got that intro piece. It's very haunting. And I'm not going to compare it, but it took me back to the very start of Poison Flesh and Blood album. If you guys remember that intro piece, it's like a tip of the hat. A tip of the hat to that. But there's also a nice little piece at the end. Tell me more about those last few words on it.
Well, it's our, you know, the first singer, the founder of this band. He passed away a long time ago, and we took a live clip from him, like telling people to, hey, what's up, motherfuckers? What is he saying? Yeah. All right, motherfuckers.
Something,
Was that hard to do, or did it feel good to do that, or was it hard?
It was the producer who just ripped it from YouTube, and he was just kind of joking, like, see if we would react, and it kind of felt good. So
Yeah.
we kept it.
Yeah.
It's good as the listener that it sounds like a celebration, and it makes the album stay in that celebration mode.
Yeah, it sets the tone.
Yeah.
Now, I really hate talking to artists about the pandemic, but it's just, unfortunately, we all went through it. Now, it hurt bands not to play live, but a lot of bands became far more productive. In the world of Crashdiet, besides not touring, what did it mean for you guys?
I mean, we had more time to write songs, but I don't know if we were more productive than before. We just spread it out. You know,
it can be dangerous to have too much time on your hands because then you start to think too much.
Yeah. Did you find that you overthought any of the songs and then you had to go back and sort of reevaluate them?
Yeah, many times.
What song was the hardest?
I mean, some of the songs, there's so many demos of that's insane. You know, a song like, I don't know, the single we dropped today has kind of been around for a long time in different versions, and you know, Eric has been writing. Our drummer Eric wrote that song, and he's been like working on it for ages. So I guess
you finally let the drummer have a song. Oh, look, I'm glad you finally let your drummer have a song.
Quite a few, actually.
On this album.
And the one and only Michael Starr from Steel Panther appears. How did that all come about?
Well, we know about each other, and I met them once, and they were super cool. When my daughter was like 1 year old, I brought her to a festival we were playing, and we met Steel Panther after the show, and they were like all super cool. So, and then we've just been having short conversations online with them during the past years, and then we just dropped them a text, you know, do you want to guest sing on our album? And he was like, yeah, no problem, like easy peasy, you know.
Perfect. I'm really into the song Darker Minds. That's one of my standout tracks from the album. Tell me about that song and how it came about, and you know, the story behind it.
Well, you should ask Eric that. Because he wrote that song too.
Okay. What does it mean for you? Because everyone takes something different out of it.
It means that you can have a beautiful soul even though you have darker thoughts within, you know.
Oh.
So I think it's kind of a deep song.
Yep.
That's what it means for me.
Okay, and Shine. Straight up, it's ready for the stage. You know, it's almost in a way a bit of a show opener for me. Besides that one, what songs are you like really going, okay, we've got to get this going when we go on tour from the album?
I mean, I guess Shine is a good candidate. We're gonna like often when we don't put every song in there on the first tour, we kind of like try out a few songs, and then on the next tour we put a few more new ones in there just to kind of spread it out throughout the year.
And you have to give the audience lots of time to hear the
album, you know,
to hear all the songs, because it takes time for you to really dig into a song, I think.
The Shine song is really like one of those audience participation songs, you know, you want to have the fist in the air and sing along like the whole song, and it's very driving, you know. So that's probably going to be tested live sooner or later, you know.
Sure.
When everybody has had the album for some time.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind in the weeks leading up to the release of an album? Some artists are very anxious. Some artists have sort of lived with an album for so long, they've already kind of moved on from it. What's it like for Crashdiet leading up?
And it's probably the second part you were talking about. We're kind of like we moved on. Because it was recorded like last summer, and it's been like finalized so quite long, you know.
Yep.
So we just want to get it out. I don't feel anxious at all.
No.
I think people are gonna love it. I just feel that, you know, they're not gonna be disappointed.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and you've got vinyl, but that's coming out in September. Is that a conscious decision, or just due to the fact that it's taking so long for vinyl plants to clear their backlog?
Yeah, it's taking a long time to manufacture vinyl these days, so we kind of had to push it.
Yeah.
It'll be worth the wait though, because it seems like vinyl's made a big resurgence. So
yeah.
You've also got the ballad at the end of the album. I'm a sucker for a good power ballad. I love power ballads because I think anyone can put shitloads of effects on their guitar in a rock song, but a power ballad tends to strip a band down to its most pure form. And there are some bands that really do it well, and there are some bands that just frankly fucking suck at it, and they should stop. You guys are on the first part. You know, I love the power ballad. So do you go into an album going, okay, we need one on this one, or it just happens when it happens?
I mean, that song has been around for a long time, actually. We've even back on the, you know, Generation Wild era, we were thinking of having that song on the album, and it just didn't. I guess we didn't have the money to. We were out of money to record one more song. And then it's kind of been laying around, and now was the time to like, hey man, remember this song? And we just recorded it again.
Some of your favorite power ballads?
What's some of my favorite power ballads?
Yeah. Besides your own.
There is none. Well, I am a big sucker for power ballads. I think there's a lot of Wasp power ballads, you know, from different albums, like Forever Free, or the song, is it called The Crimson Idol? Or just The Idol? The Idol, I think. There's a ballad on that. But I mean, there's tons of power ballads that I love. I'm a sucker too, I must admit.
Excellent. You're going out in May for some Euro dates, and unfortunately, we haven't had much luck getting you to Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the plan? Is there anything sort of in the pipeline to come back and see us?
Yeah, we're just waiting for the new postponed dates. You know, we had this little festival, I think it is, where we're supposed to play with the Pretty Boy Floyd, but it's been postponed like time after time.
Yeah.
And I guess they're kind of waiting for the last kind of restrictions to open up and set the new dates. I don't know, but we're ready, you know.
Yeah.
Well, we literally just had our first international festivals last weekend. So
Oh, really?
So we had our Stone Temple Pilots, Cheap Trick.
Oh, nice.
Down here. So so we're pretty much good to go when you are.
Yeah.
Or when your promoter Danny is good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, everyone takes something different from an album. What do you want your fans to take out of the new album?
Ooh, what a question. I'm not really sure what you mean by that either.
Well, for me, I can tell you that out of it, I take one word: fun.
Oh, but that's a good.
If I had to say to someone, here's this album, I'm not going to go, here's this album, like it's, you know, the best guitar playing album or the best bass player. I'm just going to go, here's this album and it's fun. And just hand it to them. And, you know, I think you probably tapped in, like, while your sound remains the same, I think you've tapped into something that bands tend to forget, is that music should be fun.
Yeah.
I guess we kind of talked about that in the beginning, like deliberately trying to make an album more like positive and like a positive feeling, not sing about too much anxiety that we tend to do. And I think it's it has more positive vibes on this album than it's been in a while for this band.
All right, now I'm going to flip it. You're on the road. What is the worst habit any bandmate can have on the road?
Like eating those what do they call it? The dried meats thing.
Yeah.
I like jerky.
Beef jerky. When people eat those, they tend to contaminate the air in the bus. Even when I used to eat, I'm a vegetarian now, so it's even worse, but I used to eat that shit and it turns your stomach into like dead, like dead putrefaction.
Okay. Now, what's the?
Well, you never notice it because you're the one farting.
I'm the one doing it.
And we always tend to have our beds like really close.
Yeah.
Not this tour.
Not on this tour.
Okay, now we're going to close up for the day and let you guys move on with your days. What would you like to tell your friends and fans in Australia?
We miss you, and it's been 10 years since we've been over there, so we want to come over there and give everybody a nice. We want hugs, basically. You know, we need your love.
Come and hug us.
Come and hug us.
Equal quantities hugs, equal quantities beef jerky.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're back, and that was a really cool interview with Martin and Peter. They were a lot of fun. What did you think of it, Curt?
I'm very jealous that you got to speak to the guys, and it was nice to hear them. You know, that maybe the Australian tour is not completely off. I'm very happy about that. That's very exciting. Hands down, my favorite bit of it. Well, one of my favorite bits of that interview.
And whatever you do when they come to Australia, just bring Peter jerky.
Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna love it.
He just wants beef jerky.
Yeah, that's how Curt gets knocked out backstage at the Crashdiet show.
Just the jerky.
Yeah.
All righty.
Exactly.
So, as we said, album's out April 29. Start with like the title track, if you could call it a title track.
Intro track.
Yeah, it's very much just a very atmospheric intro, which harkens back to a lot of those little sort of 80s and early 90s albums that have the cool intro track. But there's a bit of a special guest from the past at the very end.
Yeah, I was not expecting that to hear the ghostly voice of Dave Leppard. It's like, oh, okay, fuck. Well then, so yeah, that's a nice little thing to throw in for the fans there as sort of a keeping the flame alive.
Yeah, I love the fact it also came from the engineer, not the band as such. They were just looking at something on YouTube and just ripped it and put it into the track and just thought it was a nice touch.
Yeah, I love hearing that it was just a thing ripped from YouTube. It wasn't from like a live recording or anything. It's like, oh, wow, technology's gotten weird.
Yep. When you've got bands pirating their own live shows.
Yeah. At which point does it become not pirating then? Like, how does this end?
It's like re-ownership.
Yeah. Reclaiming.
Reclaiming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very great. It's a really fun little intro track. The thing that I noticed, especially on like re-listens, is that's kind of like the start of a car race, and everybody's revving their engines. And, you know, as a rider goes up to the ding, ding, beep, and everybody just goes. And that's kind of like the best analogy I could think of for that track to this album.
Yeah.
This album is high octane.
It
just pedal to the metal the whole time.
It will go straight into Together Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
which,
just like
if you're a Crashdiet fan, you've already heard. That's, I think, their first single off this album.
It's just like a full tilt party track for me.
Yeah, it's got those big gang choruses that you need, like the big, you know, you can cheer along to it, which is that's a huge thing for this band's sound. Has always been that sort of, you know, you can be in a crowd of 100,000 people and shouting it out, or you can be in your living room jumping around on the couch doing the exact same thing.
Did you do that?
No. Maybe. Yeah. Did I find myself did I catch myself singing along on the bus to it? No, of course not. Somebody else caught me.
Excellent. Then it goes into to Shine On. For me, here's where that production we were talking about really starts to come into play, where it's very evident. There's this big, thick, you know, sound. Yeah, I've heard it mentioned on other reviews so far as a wall of sound, so I'm not going to steal their idea, because even though many other people have done the wall of sound before. It is a very thick and luscious sound. It's got that really 80s Mutt Lange vibe.
It's a huge soundscape to it, but and I've said it to you earlier as well, the mixing on this album is second to none. And it's like listening through it on headphones is unbelievable. It sounds like the band is all around you. But nothing's overpowering, which is like it works really nicely.
There's nothing too heavy, is there, in the mix?
No, nothing that feels out of place, which is really, even nowadays, is something that a lot of bands do run into. Is having, you know, say the guitars just for this little bit are a little too prominent in the mix, and you can't hear the bass or anything like that. You've got none of those issues, and the mix on it is just my favorite thing about this whole album.
Then we go into No Man's Land.
Go. I really love the bass guitar in this.
That's where I was going straight away.
Super prominent. It's so good. It's got that real nice it drives that whole song, and you can feel it like from the start. It's just
the bass leads the song without taking over for me. It's prominent, but it's not overpowering. But I also love the way in certain times you hear it sort of pull back. There's a little bit of that dynamic where, while it is sort of the driving force of the song, it pulls back a little bit. And where, you know, you have solos and fills and things like that, and vocal harmonies. The bass isn't trying to compete with that.
Definitely.
You know, so that was a big one for me. The drumming, so Eric's drumming is pretty up there for me on that one. It's got a nice solid thud to it, which I like. But the one thing I will say about the drumming, we talk about the 80s production, I don't hear any of those 80s kind of sample drums.
Yeah, it's all very like acoustic kit, just mic'd up. Like it's a proper rock kit.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, that it works. It works for this band having they've got a very 80s sound, but it's also a very raw sound. It's a sound that will translate really, really well to live gigs, I think.
Yeah. And that's
because there's not a whole lot of extra stuff dubbed in, and there's nothing like you could just have the dudes up on stage with drums and guitar and go.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they'll be able to do it live. We won't have to worry about offending Eddie Trunk with them using tracks, so that'll be fine.
Yep.
Hi, Eddie. Yeah, look.
if you're watching this man doesn't speak for me. But still, like, the fuck, dude.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's just a track.
Yeah, it's fine. You'll be fine. You'll get over it.
It's fine. So let's think. Darker Minds next. Look, I see things tossed around online that it's a ballad. For me, it's just a slow song. Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's full on. It's certainly not a power ballad, I wouldn't say.
No.
It's got that sort of the meat to it. The vocals on this I really liked. I love the way that the harmonies were done.
Yeah.
It's one of the standouts for me. I think that's probably where people are getting the ballad feel from.
Yep.
You know, that and the slower song. So great lyrics to it as well. I noticed this is about the point of the album where my holy fuck, lyrics are wow as we're going as well. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like you talk about the vocal harmonies, I really hear like some cool rhythm guitar going along with it. Like, and I like the fact that, you know, when you come to playing rock guitar, it's not all about how many notes you play, it's about where you deliver your melody lines and your chords, and it's all the way through that track for me. Dead Crusade. This is like heavy.
This is my favorite. It's this and Powerline are my favorite songs off the album because they sound like classic Crashdiet. This song I described to a friend as being what Motley Crue thinks Motley Crue sound like.
Yeah, good analogy.
This song would not sound out of place on Saints of Los Angeles.
Yeah,
like, it's got that kind of like mid 2000s Motley, again, Saints of Los Angeles era Motley Crue sort of stomp and that real fun groove and vibe to it, which I fucking love. I think it's great, and it's got that very classic Crashdiet sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a punky edge to me.
Yeah, very much so. And the guitar intros for that was where, you know, the guitar's riffing along and then all of a sudden you've got the drums come in and it feels like it's going through 5 different time signatures before it finally gets into the guitar riff groove. Was like, where the fuck did we just musically go? Yeah,
and it does sort of keep you guessing a little bit for me, like, and it is probably the drum track that does that. Next up, we get a guest vocalist.
We do. Very excited about.
Yeah, the song is Powerline, featuring the one and only Michael Starr from Steel Panther.
The most disappointing thing about this song is it shows how Michael Starr could be performing. It's such a kick-ass song. Like it sounds like a down Powerline. You know, they've got the electrical effects and sort of vibes with the reverb on the guitars layered throughout, definitely at the start, at the end. It took me by surprise hearing Michael Starr delivering vocals the way that he did. And then hearing his vocals layered with Gabriel's like throughout the course of the fucking song was like, it was really, really cool. This is one of those songs that I hope gets added to their set list because again, it's got a very classic Crashdiet feel to it. But I hope it makes it into the set list. So if they're ever performing with Steel Panther, they can have Michael do, you know, trade off on vocals.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
It's the first ever quote unquote guest appearance on a Crashdiet album as well. It's funny that I don't like to say featuring Michael Starr because I actually think he's actually being himself, like Ralph Sens. Michael Starr, he's got his real vocal voice, not his.
He's not putting on the faux. He's not putting on the faux David Lee Roth voice.
Yeah, and like Ralph sings great.
Oh, it's such a powerful addition of vocals as well, and in a lower register than what you're used to with Michael Starr. You do get the the oh yeah,
yep,
and his his David Lee Roth woos, which is cool. Like I can listen to that all day.
It was nice to hear him sing and not do the shtick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's not only does it just absolutely fucking slap as a Crashdiet song, it's like, wow, okay, you've redeemed Michael Starr from being
a cover band singer.
Cover band singer, and it's really was not something that I expected from this album. Pleasantly surprised is an understatement with it. I adore it.
And for me, when I heard it, it reminded me of the first Steel Panther album when they came out with Michael Starr and Corey Taylor together.
Yes,
because that's when he was singing as himself. It's very sister song to Death to All Metal for me, like in the vibe. Yeah,
very, very similar sort of vibe to it. I think it's, in my opinion, is the best song off the album. Brings so much to the table, and it's re-listenable like fucking crazy. Yeah, it's so good.
Then we go to Resurrection of the Damned.
It's another heavy one too. This is a very sort of like classic 80s heavy metal, not hair metal sort of feel to it, I found.
Bit priesty for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard because I kind of go, it's priesty, I get a bit of Injustice Metallica sort of without going too far. Yeah,
it's a little bit, it's almost got that sort of Motorhead edge in some bits as well. Funky, it's got that, So I really enjoyed it. I was still probably tweaking off Powerline when this one comes on, so which is not a bad thing.
I've only got one thing I'm not a fan of with the song is where it's placed.
Yeah, it feels like it should be earlier on in the album.
Yeah, probably even straight after the intro track. Like go really heavy and then come in with more of the classic sound, I think. And that's just me. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I love the song. I just think it doesn't fit where it fits on the album.
Yeah, it could have had slightly different places. But then again, like, I think it'd be very difficult to reorganize this album and have the same sort of impact that it does. Like, I think everything is almost perfectly placed to just like bang, 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 done. Like, what? So
yeah, true. We move from there into We Die Hard.
This is very Reckless Love. This reminds me really of Reckless Love, and a lot of Crazy Licks as well. Another band that's out here later on this year. Really, really cool. Like, this is an 80s stadium rock song. Like, they really, really like it. It was very lighter weight compared to most of the album, I feel, musically, just a little bit. A little bit more of a cleaner sounding song. Very, interesting sort of palate cleanser.
Cool. Yeah, look, for me, I don't have ones I'm going to say I don't like on the album, but it's in my B group.
Okay. I really like it. Yeah. It reminds me of so many of the bands that got me into Crashdiet. So.
Which is good. If you were going to introduce someone to a lot of those bands, that's probably where you want to head.
Yep, 100%.
And we go to Shell Shock, which is, it pulls back the pace a little bit.
Yeah, it's a stomper. This reminded me again of Motley Crue, and I think it was the gang vocals, and just sort of like, it makes you want to air drum to it. It's that real nice sort of like to it as you go.
Yeah, I kind of call this song Skid Crew.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's real fun. I do love the it's another one of those sort of slower ones, but it just makes me want to sort of stomp a hole through the carpet.
It's funny that you talked about Saints Los Angeles. Now, to me, Saints Los Angeles actually pulls back from like Motley Crue. It's a bit of a slower stomper, and that's where I see that correlation that you mentioned right there.
Yeah,
it's
very much.
Very, very Saints era Crue, which is not trying to play fast, but really open riffs and things like that, and big sound. So yeah, I can see where you pull that connection too.
I listen to a bunch of Saints of Los Angeles. Like, I love that album, and I have no idea why. It's a really, really good album. It's got some great musical themes. And yeah, that's, again, that was 2008. And so that's about the time when I was getting into these sort of bands. And everybody had a very similar sound and had that really new, clean production with still that 80s flair. It's where a lot of the Crazy Licks influence I can see from that, when they say, listen to a whole lot of the 80s bands, I feel it's more of the modern stuff from those 80s bands that makes that work.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to probably cop a bit of flack for this when I talk about Saints Los Angeles. It's such a tacky Motley Crue album with its themes.
Oh yeah, sorry. Are there non-tacky Motley Crue albums?
Yeah, the best one.
Oh yeah, well, okay. There's one.
Yes,
there's one that isn't, and I know which one you're on about. So.
Oh yeah, the '94. Can't go wrong.
Yeah,
but like
that's it.
The thing is, the Saints album is fun.
Yeah.
If anyone,
it's.
If anyone listens to that album and doesn't see that it's fun, they're not listening. They're deciding.
Yeah. You're judging it on what you think you're hearing.
Yeah.
And you've said this about Automaton, is that this album is fun.
Yeah, it is.
Like, everything about it is fun. It brings back memories from places and times that you've never been, which is great. Like, it's that sort of fun.
And if people have never gotten into the hair metal, 80s, 90s metal, it's probably a good place to actually dip your toes in the water, this album.
Yeah. It's all the fun of that with a little bit more edge too, which is great. This is a sort of album that if you put it on in your car, you're going to break every speed limit for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to get out of control with this one.
We go to Unbroken next.
Yeah, this is where I start to be like, holy fuck, there's still more. We're still going. Like, wow, okay. Probably one of the least memorable ones on the album for me.
Yep.
Not saying that it's unmemorable. It's just, you go through a lot of real solid tracks to then get up to this. And I think it's a great way to slowly or sort of end the album.
But yeah, but the descent into the land.
Yeah. This is the, please fasten your seatbelts, we're coming in for landing.
Yes.
Which is really good. Again, love the guitar work on it. The guitar melodies are just great. They work really, really nicely for it.
Yep. And then you move on to the album ender.
An interesting idea, or an interesting thing with this, of an acoustic song, basically, and then going into or an acoustic intro to the song. Love the song. It almost reminds me a little bit. I've completely mind blanked on what the song's called, but there's a few sort of 80s songs that are very, very similar, sort of starting with your acoustic guitar intro.
Yep.
And then building into that huge ending.
Yep.
I almost felt like it was a bonus track at first, because it's such a confronting thing to hear acoustic guitar all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. I liked that was like, again, keeping you guessing right until the final song.
Yeah, and look, I said it to the guys in the interview, I am a sucker for a power ballad. And there are certain bands,
this is a light is in the air power ballad, this one.
And there are certain bands where actually do just say, no, stop. Don't do that, because you have no place. No offense, but you have no place. The 80s power ballad kind of stopped for me around the to me, the last really good sort of power ballads I liked were like Forever from Kiss, To Be With You, even into things like Wasted Time by Skid Row, and Breaking Down was the last sort of ballady song I really enjoyed from my era of bands. And then everyone that tried just seemed so contrived and forced after the fact.
Seems very forced. Yeah.
Whereas this one just seems like it was like, okay, I've got this little intro that we're going to start off with a 12 string and we're going to build. It just seems so natural.
Yeah, it seems very, very genuine. And I think that's why it works as a closing track. And it's really nice having sort of almost a somber beginning to an end for it, which is especially after, headbanging for the previous 40 minutes. It's really nice to be like, oh yeah, cool. I can sit and just, enjoy this. And again, the mix is one of the reasons that this works so well. Is it builds so beautifully with so much clarity to everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And it's not mixed like some of the previous songs are as well. You've got a very, they've tweaked it so that it works in its best way.
I love an album end that is mega. It's the big grand ending.
Yeah.
There are many albums where they might not necessarily be power ballads, but they're a grand ending to them. I'm going to bring out my one and only Kiss reference. Oh no, I've done two.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get some haters, but I actually think one of the
best.
Is
it Psycho Circus?
Yep.
Yeah.
Journey of 1,000 Years. I love that song.
That's a great build up. I do love that build up. I think you're right. It's that same sort of if it's well mixed and builds to that, and this really does build to that epic scale to the end. I agree entirely. I think it's
so. I've just thought of something. And funny, what's the correlation? Like, think about who produced that album, Fairbairn. Think about all the albums he produced in the 80s. Joey, Aerosmith, that's where this sort of, that epic thing is a very Bruce Fairbairn.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we've gotten the Kiss references out for another episode. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, what are we in? We're like 45 minutes in.
And the wives have left the building after 45 minutes this time.
Yeah, it's twice as long as we did in rehearsal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I've got a thing about it. It doesn't matter what band. It can be a country band. It can be like a singer-songwriter. I always think the last song on the album is more important than the first song because it's the last memory.
It's going to be the bit that you remember. And if you can't land it, then it's going to almost ruin the vibe of that whole album.
Yeah.
And that is not the case with this. Whether or not it's going to be a song that I immediately go to listen to in the Crashdiet catalog, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I think what I really like about this is it's like we were talking with the Ghost album, Impera. It's an album that's designed that you can pick up any song and you can listen to it and it's going to fucking slap. But if you listen to the album from start to finish, it is a completely different experience.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I don't think that will work with this song is actually playing it live.
Yeah, I feel like this could be done as a full acoustic arrangement, but not as a direct.
Not as part of the live show. Yeah, if they went and did like a little unplugged run, it would work well there. But I just think it would get lost in a live setting.
Yeah, I think it doesn't have the energy. It doesn't have the same energy that a lot of the other songs on the album do, which again, Crashdiet are a very high energy band.
Yeah.
And all of their previous stuff, like their set list, you're gonna, if you're in your 30s, it's going to be a little bit rough the next day, sort of thing. It's just going to be a lot of energy you're gonna have to burn out.
Yeah, the ballad would be the quote unquote cock block of the live set.
Yeah. So, but in this album setting, it is a beautiful ending to a hell of an album.
Yeah, and as we sort of finish up tonight, whenever you're watching and listening, we urged you this with the Ghost album, and we'll probably say it again, and Curt touched on this earlier, it's an album. It's not a bunch of singles. So to actually take it in when it's out on the 29th, no matter how you get your music, if it's streaming, physical, and as the guy said later in the year, there will be vinyl. I consider that being
which is going to be a hell of a pickup.
Yeah, it'll be a collection one for me, I think. But listen to it from start to finish and then go find your favorites, because I think the band have actually put quite a bit of work into that sequencing. Even though we've sort of gone, oh, that might not fit there, they've put together a collection of songs that they think works as a collection. So show the artist like the respect and do the whole listen.
Yeah, definitely do yourself a favor and listen to it through the whole way through. Oh, I had to, because you've got to. It is such a perfect experience of this kind of an album, and it is. Yep. It's like, you know, the first time you listen, everybody's heard like "Hey Stupid" or "Feed My Frankenstein." But the first time you listen to "Hey Stupid," the album, the whole way through, it's a completely different experience, and that's the sort of thing. It's one of those big '80s narrative rock albums, and it works in that way, and it's such a better experience doing that for the first listen through to all of these tracks. And then, you're going to find a bunch that'll go on. You're like, you got a running playlist. There's like half this album's going to be on that running playlist.
Yeah, and it's a headphone album too. I like the fact that it's a headphone album.
Yeah. Get some really good speakers or some really good headphones and blow them out.
All right. So we're going to close up for today, whatever time you're listening. So that's episode 30 in the can. Let's hope Crashdiet make it down at the end of the year or next year. I've had a couple of goes.
I don't care when. I just want to see him.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Sessions presented by Here to Zen magazine. If you are listening to us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. If you are listening on one of the podcast platforms, please subscribe there. And don't forget to follow Here to Zen magazine on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.